It's Friday, the 8th of November 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Adam Lang.
Sean, story number 1, the head of the Reserve Bank and the boss of National Australia Bank have warned of trade wars hurting Australia's growth as a result of the election of Donald Trump as the next US president.
National Australia Bank Chief Executive Officer Andrew Irvine talked about adverse effects on the local economy from tariffs emanating from a trade war. Donald Trump, of course, has suggested tariffs of 60% on Chinese imports into the US and up to 20% on other imports into the US. Now, Australia exports about $22 billion worth of stuff to the US, beef, gold, pharmaceutical products. We've had a free trade agreement for almost 20 years. Not sure how all that fits into it. Mr. Irvine also warned of higher for longer inflation and US interest rates. Bond markets are already pricing that in. There's also an expectation that there will be tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, and a reduction in red tape. Good for earnings, good for economic growth in the short term for US companies. We'll have to see how that plays out. The Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock said her initial feeling was that a 10% tariff on all trading partners wouldn't have much of an impact. If there are higher tariffs, then it's more likely to hit the local economy. She didn't really have a view on what it means for interest rates. The Reserve Bank Assistant Governor, Chris Kent, he said large tariffs on China may have an adverse effect on Australia. The general agreement, I would say, Adam, is that no one fully knows what a Trump government means for this country.
Story number 2, Sean. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was on the phone quickly calling President-elect Trump to congratulate him.
Yes, the US is Australia's closest military ally. We also have the AUKUS deal worth tens of billions of dollars. Why wouldn't he ring him? Mr. Albanese said the two spoke on the importance of the alliance and the relationship's strength in security, AUKUS, trade and investment. When asked about comments he made about Donald Trump in 2017, where he was quite disparaging of him, he refused to apologise. He also said Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, had his full support. Now, Rudd has previously called Trump the most destructive president in history. A few bridges to mend, fences to fix, bridges to cross, whatever the euphemism is. That's what we've got going on.
Moving on to story number 3, Sean. National Australia Bank has reported an 8% drop in annual cash profit to $7.1 billion and said Australian borrowers have entered the toughest part of the economic cycle.
The result was about as expected, though the dividend was a bit higher. The share price of National Australia Bank fell sharply before it recovered and finished flat. I suppose the number people were looking at was loan arrears. That's where repayments aren't keeping up with the schedule. They jumped to their highest point since 2020. Chief Executive Officer Andrew Irvine said there were more bad loans as businesses and consumers grapple with higher interest rates. National Australia Bank stepped back from mortgage wars over the last 12 months. The competition got really hot and NAB said, look, we're going to preserve our profit margin, so we're not going to partake in it. As a result, the consumer bank suffered. He said, Mr. Irvine said, the competition in the mortgage lending market isn't as fierce as previous, so it's back in competing. But NAB's NIM, there you go, National Australia Bank's net interest margin, the difference between what it pays on deposits and receives on loans, was down 3 basis points. As I said, its share price was flat.
Sean, story number 4, the competition regulator has given the go-ahead to the merger of Chemist Warehouse and Sigma Pharmaceutical.
That is one large step towards creating a $29 billion share market giant that would make it bigger than Coles, for example, bigger than Santos. It means Sigma, the pharmacy wholesaler and retailer, will merge with the number one retailer, Chemist Warehouse. Now, Sigma has had to make some concessions, exit path for franchisees in the network, restrictions on use of data that it collects. But looks like this deal is going to get the green light. Sigma's share price was up 24% yesterday.
Sean, story number 5, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will consult with the National Cabinet today about banning social media for children under the age of 16.
Please don't have any of those anymore, because that is going to be very hard to do. The E-Safety Commissioner will oversee the ban. The Prime Minister wants social media companies to enforce it. He agrees the policy won't get a 100% outcome, and he doesn't really want to allow exemptions based on parental consent. Under 16-year-olds won't be able to hold an account, basically. We're talking Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, etc., etc. Social media companies, parents and children could face penalties if they don't comply. I think it's a good idea, but my word, no idea how they're going to enforce it.
That's it, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam.
It's Friday, the 8th of November, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, then find our longer podcast called Fear and Greed on your favourite podcast platform. I'm Adam Lang, and that was the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.